Monday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock in time for Sports for CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a great day and you had a great weekend. MLB trade deadline is tomorrow at 6 o'clock, and the Guardians have reportedly agreed to trade starting pitcher Aaron Civale to the Tampa Bay Rays. They will get a first base prospect, more of a line drive gap-to-gap hitter than a power hitter. It is Jason Manzardo, Kyle Manzardo, who is ranked among the top 50 prospects in all of baseball. But again, not necessarily a power hitter, more of a gap-to-gap guy. We'll have more on that later in the show. Browns getting ready for the Hall of Fame game just 4 days away. They will have practice out in Berea for training camp. Got home from West Virginia. Let's welcome in Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Mary Kay, you were in West Virginia the entire time with the team. What were some of your takeaways from that beginning to training camp?
Well, I have a lot of takeaways, actually, David. Let me first start with Deshaun Watson. He looks like he's really on top of everything. He's moving fast. He's making quick decisions. He's connecting extremely well with Elijah Moore. Now, he did not have Amari Cooper at his disposal for the whole entire 8 practices that we were down there because Amari was dealing with a little bit of tweaked something. And, he didn't do a whole bunch until he did some things yesterday. But for the most part, Elijah was the star of the show on offense. And those two really look dynamite together. He's going to be doing so many different things. He's going to line up inside, outside. He'll run gadget plays. He'll actually run out of the backfield. So this is going to be really exciting, I think. Nick Chubb looked amazing, of course, always does. And then over on the defensive side of the ball, you could really see that the defensive backfield has the lights have come on. Those guys are just ready to dominate. They really looked amazing in some of the red zone periods. I mean, they were just shutting down Deshaun and the receivers. Now, again, he did not have a full complement. Amari wasn't out there. There were some other guys that were also injured. But for the most part, those defensive backs, Greg Newsome, Denzel Ward, Juan Thornhill, Grant Delpit, Martin Emerson, they look pretty darn good. And that was one of my biggest takeaways.
So we've also heard, and you've confirmed this, free agent defensive tackle Shelby Harris visiting with the Browns today. Harris, terrific 8-year career so far with the Seahawks, Broncos, Raiders. Played his college ball at Illinois State. And take a look at this. Of the remaining top pressure rates for free agent defensive tackles on the market still, Ndamukong Suh 10.2, Matt Ioannidis 9.8, and there's Shelby Harris at 8.3. Mary Kay, if they're bringing him in, you would think they're serious about Shelby Harris. Otherwise, you don't waste somebody's time by bringing him in at this point with training camp already underway.
Well, that's true. So they probably are very serious about signing him, but I think, and I've been working on another story all day today, but I think he was maybe visiting the Broncos yesterday too. So I don't know if he's on a little bit of a tour or if he's ready to make a decision. So we should find out, something fairly soon about whether or not he is actually going to sign with the Browns. But, it certainly can't hurt. They've got Dalvin Tomlinson in there inside, and he's going to be stout, and he's going to be a starter, and he's going to hold it down. And they've got a number of other guys in there. They drafted Siaki Ika. They've got Tristan Hill, Maurice Hurst, Jordan Elliott. So they have bodies there, and it's just a matter of, do they feel good about what they have? Yeah,
I guess the question, would it surprise you if they went out and signed a veteran like a Shelby Harris?
No, it wouldn't surprise me at all. This is the time of year where you can get some of those types of guys at a bargain basement price. There are a number of guys like that still out there that still have some talent and ability. I mean, you've got Jadeveon Clowney still out there. Not that the Browns are going to sign him. Of course they won't. But, some team can get him at a really nice price right now. You've got John Johnson 3 out there. You've got Kareem Hunt. So there's talent available. It's just going to come at a little bit of a bargain at this point.
So the Browns wrapped up their practice in West Virginia yesterday. And final day, heat in the morning, and things got a little bit tempers flared a little bit on this play right here. You see, that's Ogo Okenronquo kind of slapping the back of the helmet of James Hudson and then running away, and it leads to a skirmish. There were 2 of them, nothing terribly crazy, although they did throw some punches, which that upset Kevin Stefanski. Matter of fact, Kevin Stefanski made the team run because there were a couple of punches thrown during that.
I'll say this. Fighting, skirmishes, jawing happens in every training camp and at every level of football. They're tired, they're hot, they've been going against each other, so I'm not surprised at that at all. They talked about it, it's over. We don't throw punches, so I'll review that stuff, and there's obviously penalties if you're throwing punches. In games, you get thrown out of the game, so why practice something that would get you thrown out of a game? So we will address that, obviously, but I don't think anybody's ever been around a bunch of football players in the heat that don't get a little agitated, if you will.
Mary Kay, could you sense the practices being extremely competitive?
Yeah, they were. They were really nicely competitive down there. They really brought the juice and the heat, the defense especially, like I had mentioned. I mean, really, they were not going to be scored upon in the red zone. That was their goal. They were going to shut it down, and they did a really, really nice job. And things did get chippy yesterday, but, I would think that, just a little bit of that chippiness is better than sluggishness on the last day of practice, because you can rein in chippiness, but it's harder to motivate and fire guys up. Now, I have to talk about that video for a minute, David. You just have to give me a second to talk about the video, because we're out in the glaring sun. It's so bright out, and I'm sitting there with my little iPhone, okay, just my little iPhone, and on the screen, it'll go dark half the time, and I can't even see what I'm filming. So I didn't really even know what I had until, after the skirmish died down a little bit. I was thinking, God, I wonder. And I was also filming in vertical, so I could do some YouTube shorts. And it's hard. It's really hard to know what you have on that little screen. So I didn't know what I had until the skirmish ended, and then I looked and I played it back, and lo and behold, there was the head slap. There was the little runaway over there. There was the punch. There was the counter punch. I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
How did I do?
It looked, if you have kids, it looked like brothers kind of antagonizing each other is what it looked like.
Yeah, I wrote about that, the way I described it, but it was like a long vacation. They've been together too long. They're giving each other a noogie in the back seat of the car on the way home. These guys were like ready to go. The buses were idling, but yeah, so with the video, I'm telling you, I mean, it's hilarious because the fight video on Twitter has, last time I looked, and I haven't looked in a while, I don't even think I've looked since maybe early this morning. The fight video had something like 1.8 million views, and surprisingly, the Sprints tweet that I tweeted out with all these big guys and small guys and every other guy in between running the sprints for punishment. I don't even know how this is possible, but it had like 5.4 million views this morning. I don't even know how that's possible. But anyways, lo and behold, people enjoyed watching them run sprints, apparently.
All right, before we go to break, which positions do you feel good about after the past week and kind of seeing guys in pads and just seeing everybody run around for the first week or 8 days or so?
Well, again, it's hard to know what's going on in the trenches with no pads on, but certainly the defensive backs looked great. Certainly Deshaun looked great. The defensive line, we know that's going to be really good. And the receiving core looked good. Now, I do have some concerns about the receiving core because Marquise Goodwin is out, and Anthony Schwartz really just hasn't quite shown yet that he's ready to step up and take over that role for him. So I still feel like they need that vertical stretch guy. But for the most part, just watching Elijah Moore and knowing that Amari Cooper is going to be out there full go soon, they'll be pretty darn good.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out on the side of the break. We'll hear more from Kevin Stefanski about how the defense has performed. Plus, Should we raise the expectations for the Browns this season? Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. We've alluded to it in the first segment of the show. The Browns' defense in the red zone in particular has been really good in the early part of training camp. Kevin Stefanski talked about that yesterday after practices.
It was awesome. Yeah, I was telling Coach Schwartz, that's great work for the offense, great work for the defense. It's good versus good. Coach Schwartz and the DBs and the front and the linebackers, I mean, they're going to make the offense work. They're going to make you earn everything. You're going to have to throw into tight windows. So the drill we were doing down there was third downs in the red zone, and that's really, really challenging. And I thought the defense did a really nice job.
And Mary Kay, when you think about red zone offense, especially third down, that's going to define how successful your season is.
Yes, absolutely. You know, it's such great work for Deshaun Watson to have to try to fit it into those tight windows against the likes of Denzel Ward, Martin Emerson, Juan Thornhill, Greg Newsome, all those guys. It's really, really good. They are going to be ready for the season if they can score on this defense. Not only do they have to fit into those tight windows, Deshaun has to get rid of the ball quickly, and he's got to do this against the likes of Myles Garrett and Z Smith and Obo Okoronkwo. And Dalvin Tomlinson. I mean, these guys are applying the pressure, and they're going to make it really, really difficult on Deshaun and this offense, and that's good. Iron's going to sharpen iron, and if they can score on these guys in the red zone and in the 2-minute drills that the Browns will have coming up, then they will definitely be ready for the season. And we all know they have to be ready early on. I mean, they have got to be ready from the jump, and they're getting great work in.
What have your impressions been of this defense under Jim Schwartz? It seems like every time we hear one of the defenders speak, they feel like, they feel free, they feel, aggressive. Everything you want to hear, you've heard. What have your impressions of this defense been?
Yeah, you know what? Right now, I told you I was working on a story today, and they always take longer to write than you think they will. So hopefully I'll have it up by shortly after we get off of this show. But I'm working on a story on Z Smith, and I did a nice one-on-one interview with him where he was great. And he talked about how great this defense is going to be, how he thinks this defensive line is going to work together, how he and Myles are already trying to figure out who's going to do what when, and how they're going to try to bring out the best in each other, how they're stout up front and in the back end, and how they will work hand in hand. So these are some of the things that we're hearing about the Browns defense. And we know that those defensive linemen are going to have a chance to just go forward in a hurry, take the clamps off and just go. And that's what they love to do. And, the Dawgs love to eat. They're going to get a chance to do it. The guys in the back end, they're going to play a lot of man-to-man. They're going to get to play to their strengths. And I just think these guys are going to really enjoy playing for Jim Schwartz.
And I know you've done this on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Do you think it's time to kind of raise the expectations for the Browns?
You know, I've always had pretty high expectations for the Cleveland Browns this year, so I don't know that I need to raise them from where I've always been. I have always thought, when I look out at this talent, and I know a lot of people might not feel this way because it's the Browns and they still have a lot to prove, but when I look out at Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, Martin Emerson, Grant Delpit, Juan Thornhill, Greg Newsome, JOK, all these guys, Nick Chubb, the guards, Deshaun, Amari, Elijah. I mean, when I'm rattling this off, I mean, these are talented football players. And if it comes together on the field the way that it's supposed to, they should be challenging for the playoffs. They should be challenging to win the AFC North. I mean, there's no reason why they can't go out and beat the Bengals. We know they already have. I mean, we know that the Browns are the Browns are 4-1 against Joe Burrow in his career. So they know they can beat them. And then, you know, Lamar, he always gives the Browns a tough time. But and the Steelers, they're always very difficult. But I do think that the Browns have all the talent that it takes to accomplish some really great things this season. And I just don't see any reason why they shouldn't be winning 10, maybe even 11 games.
I know you've written an article about this. Deshaun Watson kind of running the show more so on offense this year. Take us through that. And you know, we've talked about this a little bit. He just has, when you watch him on the field, when I've seen him on the field, it looks different than anything I've seen play quarterback for the Browns.
Oh, that's for sure. That's 100%. And you could see those physical skills last year. It was very evident. When you put a 4-time Pro Bowler out on the field, I mean, it hits different. I mean, it just does. There's just no question about that. They look different. They move different. They stand out. They are a cut above the rest. And you're talking about all really good professional athletes out there, but these guys are just so different, so athletic. And Deshaun displayed a lot of those things last year, but now he's put it together with some better talent. And as you mentioned, I did write a whole story about the fact that he is running the show a lot more this year. There will be more no huddle. There will be more opportunities to change the plays at the line of scrimmage. There'll be more RPOs where he will be in charge of figuring out what he wants to do with those options. You know, he will have chances to take off and run. He will be able to slide the protections on the offensive line, dictate the shifting and the motion. If he sees something out there that the defense is doing or a look that they're in, he can send somebody a different way. I mean, he can run the show out there so much more than he did last year. And I think that's going to make a huge difference.
Yeah, I think he's going to feel much, much more comfortable, and that usually is a really good thing for a quarterback. Again, I know you've addressed this Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Early impressions of Elijah Moore and the new start he's getting.
Well, I had an opportunity to talk one-on-one to Elijah Moore. We sat down at the Greenbrier. You know, we went upstairs in a, you know, sort of a pavilion type of place, sat down on, you know, on a couple of chairs instead of just trying to stand somewhere in the sweltering heat. So I got a chance to get to know him a little bit, and fans are just really going to fall in love with Elijah Moore. He's really a cool guy. He's a great player. And my goal in sitting down and talking to him was to give him the opportunity to answer the question, you know, did you really do the things that you were reported to have done last year? Specifically, I wanted to know, the number one thing that we heard about him was, and I don't know how much I can say on a family show like this, but, you know, did you specifically tell former Jets offensive coordinator Mike LaFleur to blah, blah, blah himself? So, you know, I wanted to know, because that was a turning point in Elijah Moore's career, okay? It's a reason why he's not with the New York Jets anymore and why he's with the Cleveland Browns. It's part of his narrative, part of his story. And I don't think anybody has, before that, has asked him the question, did you say that thing? And he said, no, I didn't. I would never do that. I'm not a disrespectful person. I would never put my career in jeopardy like that. And I just thought it was important to give him that chance to answer. But he is a dynamite young man, a dynamite player, and what a great pickup this is for the Cleveland Browns.
And you're absolutely right. If he does the kind of things he's capable of, he could end up being one of the most popular Browns on this team.
I think so. I really think so. I think he's going to be a fan favorite. The thing that stands out to me about Elijah Moore is, he's listed at like 5'10", maybe 185 or whatever. But I think when he was in college, I think it was when he was in college, that he was listed at 5'9". And when you stand with him and when you're near him and when you see him, he almost does look a little shorter than you would have thought. So he is not a big guy by any stretch of the imagination, but he makes the most of his size, and he's fast and he's agile and he's shifty. He's got really good hands. He catches the ball with his hands really, really nicely. He's got, terrific hands, and he does have the leaping ability to go and high point. For a 5'9" guy, he can go up and get that ball pretty well. So he's just got, a tremendous skill set.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll hear from Grant Delpit. Continue to talk Browns. They're getting ready for the Hall of Fame game Thursday down in Canton. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Browns safety Grant Delpit talked about the style of defense this year's team will play under Jim Schwartz.
So we have a great D-line. DBs love that. So when they're getting after the quarterback, man, good things happen for DBs. And as long as we stick in coverage and as long as we alignment, technique, sound, it's gonna be good things for us.
Is this a defense in which safeties can really jump off the screen of the page, so to speak, and really shine and make a huge impact?
I don't know, man. I feel like in every defense you can have that. It's an attack defense. We're aggressive. We're not sitting back. We're not conservative. We're not playing just to, tag runners and give up yards. Man, we want to go make the plays. We want to be aggressive. We want to go make something happen. So
you have two new safeties playing alongside you, top three. Does that put more responsibility on you, having been here before at all, you think?
Oh, yeah. I know the lay of the land. These are new guys, but Rodney's on year 12. Juan's on year 6, and he's been to 2 Super Bowls, and Rodney's been the one. So those guys know what it takes to get there. I know the culture here, but the atmosphere they're going to bring and the mentality, it's all going to work hand in hand.
And Mary Kay, again, you hear aggressive attack style, smile on his face when he says it, and you hear the guys that they brought in that know what it takes to win. Kind of continuing themes with that defense.
Yeah, you know what? The safety group is a really nice safety group this year. I think that they're really going to do some key important things, including getting their hands on the football and creating those takeaways and those turnovers. And Grant Delpit emphasized just how vitally important that is. The Browns did not do a good job of that last year at all. And they were, I think, 27th with only 11 interceptions. He had 4 of them. I believe one Thornhill he might have had 4 with the Kansas City Chiefs as well. So you put those guys back there together, and you should be able to get your hands on some footballs. It's not easy to do, but they've got the horses now to do that. And then you put Rodney McLeod in there with them when you get to those 3 safety looks. And, I think that can be, really something that they'll come up with some impact plays, and that's what you need from that position.
So I know this is, again, another topic you've addressed, Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Myles Garrett is a leader. How have you seen him kind of evolve and step into that role?
Well, we've all seen and heard what Malik Jackson said about his leadership role. And I have to think that in talking to Myles Garrett about that in West Virginia, that had to bother him. that really had to bother him, because I know that he leads in his own way and he has his own style and his own voice, but I know it's important to him, and I know that he's tried and he's grown in that way in the years that he's been here. So I would have to think that had to be pretty hurtful to him. But I'll tell you, he was out there. You could see him really spending a lot of time working with the young guys, pulling them aside, talking to them about technique. I think he's really understanding more and more just how important that is. And I think Zadarius Smith has always had that in him. He talked about how he learned it from guys like Terrell Suggs and Elvis Dumerville and CJ Mosley in Baltimore. So he naturally has that way about him. And I think the two of them together are really taking, the Alex Wrights and the Isaiah Thomases, the Siaki Ikas under their wing and trying to get them up to speed.
And that's even more important than the coaches as far as developing young talent, is when guys that have the respect of them, and not to say that the coaches don't, but there's something when you have an elite guy who wants to show you some tricks of the trade.
Yes, absolutely. And they will listen. When they know you've been to 4 Pro Bowls or they know you've been to 3 Pro Bowls, they will listen to you. Zadarius Smith is in his 9th season. He's been with 3 different teams. He's gotten, 10, he's averaged actually 12 sacks in his last 3 full seasons. So when a guy has that kind of a resume, they will listen to you. Of course, they'll listen to Myles Garrett too. So, these guys taking the young guys under their wing will help everyone.
I know you've done this on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast as well. Potential breakout players. Who are guys that, you think could really take that next step?
Well, we've been talking about Grant Delpit. Let's throw him into that category. We talked to him and he discussed how, the level, the bar that he has set for himself is greatness. He wants to be great. He wouldn't say Pro Bowl because he thinks that's more of a popularity contest. But he wants to be a great player. He wants to take this team to the Super Bowl, and let's see what he can do. I think the ruptured Achilles right before his rookie season at the end of training camp that year was a tremendous setback for him. He worked so hard to get back, and he did a great job, and he came back really, really fast. But I think it takes a couple of years sometimes to get back to who you really are. And, now it's this opportunity to go out and show what he can do. They drafted him to be basically a Pro Bowl type safety. So let's see what he's got in him and what he can do in this Jim Schwartz defense.
What about Martin Emerson? That's a guy, the 3rd round pick a year ago, played really well. What have you seen from him in the early going of this training camp?
He was really poised last year, and he really stood out as, just having a lot of savvy for a rookie. That was one of the things that was, just really almost shocking, how good he looked as a rookie. And he's taken that up a notch to the point where, I've been saying that he has Pro Bowl ability. I think he has Pro Bowl ability. Now, in order to get the attention for the Pro Bowl like that, you do have to get your hands on some footballs. You do have to get some of those forced fumbles. You have to make some of those big plays that end up on the highlight reels. But if he can do that, if he can add that to his repertoire, just down for down, he's a really good player. And I think he's going to go up against some of the best receivers in the NFL this year. And I think he's going to give them a really good run for their money. He looks good.
Before I let you go, some of the rookies that we got to see for the first time in full training camp, as well as some of the undrafted rookie free agents. Anybody rookie free agent kind of grab your attention?
Well, rookie free agents, nobody really, 100% stands out, from that standpoint. But rookies in general, Cedric Tillman is getting a lot of work. He got a lot of work because also, as we mentioned, Amari Cooper was sidelined, Marquise Goodwin is sidelined, Anthony Schwartz was sidelined for some of the camp with a hamstring. So Ced got a lot of work, and he's really coming up the learning curve. Big receiver, real nice big target. So I think he did a nice job. DTR did a nice job. Cam Mitchell got out there and he got a lot of work. So, I would say that the rookie class is looking really good.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter, plain dealer, cleveland.com. Thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it very much, Mary Kay.
Sure, thanks for having me.
Mary Kay Cabot, make sure you check her out. Always insightful Browns coverage, cleveland.com, as well as The Plain Dealer. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, Tyler Johnson from the Faithful Dawgs podcast straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
Welcome back to Sports for CLE. I told you earlier in the show, the Cleveland Guardians have agreed to trade starting pitcher Aaron Savale to the Tampa Bay Rays. They will receive first baseman Kyle Manzardo in return. Manzardo is 22 years old, currently at AAA. Left-handed hitter, can be a hitting coach's dream, says his scouting report. Relatively quiet setup at the plate, often sees pitches out of the hand, makes impressive swing decisions, is more of a hitter than a power hitter. Exit velocities don't typically pop off the page. Again, 22 years old. He's been in AAA the whole year. 238 is his average. 11 homers, 38 RBIs, 19 doubles. Has only 65 strikeouts in those 265 at-bats. 22 years old. Rays are trying to get him to improve his strength, which they feel will improve the power numbers. But Aaron Savale traded for Kyle Manzardo, who is ranked as the 37th best prospect in all of baseball by MLB Pipeline. So Savale for Manzardo. No word on where he will be. Again, just 22 years old, has played the entire season at AAA. Back to the Browns. Tony Grossi on what he saw from the Browns in West Virginia at training camp.
They were very competitive. I mean, Denzel Ward and Elijah Moore going at it in the competitive drills. You know, Obo dominated both Hudson and
the backups.
Well, they're going to be important. I came away from it thinking that there is a method to Stefanski's madness that just might work. We won't know until they play Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. You know, if they lay eggs both of those games, we're going to ride them terribly for the way it started. But right now, the team seems to be in great mental shape and in great physical shape, and are having competitive practices.
With that, let's welcome in Tyler Johnson, Faithful Dawgs Podcast Network 216. Tyler, that's one of the things you want to hear. You want to hear early in training camp, they're getting after it. The two fights were, dust-ups and skirmishes. Can't throw punches, but you're going to expect those things. Competitive practices are usually what good teams have.
Exactly. And hearing Grossi say that, you want to hear that the Browns are having competitive periods like that. And I think some people were a little bit worried when you are in Greenbrier. You only have 2 days of pads, and they're like, well, what are they really doing when they're down there? Kevin Stefanski likes a slow ramp up, and I personally don't see anything wrong with that. As long as the Browns are ready to go week 1, that's really all that matters. And the Browns have 4 preseason games this year instead of 3. So you know what? Taking a slow approach, there's nothing wrong with that. It is going to determine, again, was this all worth it when we get to week 1, week 2 of the season? I mean, we'll find out, but I love seeing some of that intensity. You can see some of the highlights that were posted by beat reporters, but also just Brown social media. These guys are really getting after, especially those battles between Elijah Moore and Denzel Ward. That's what I want to see. I want to see these guys going one-on-one against each other, and it's very fun to watch. And, you know, the fight, it's kind of funny how that whole thing started, but at the same time, you know, I'm glad these guys are playing with passion, that they're getting after it a little bit, because I want to see that passion. Of course, you can't throw punches. Completely agree with that, but it's nice to see these guys have a chip on their shoulder, and it shows they're trying to make each other better every single play. You also saw after that fight, Stefanski bringing the team together. He had him run, but he brought the team together. Myles Garrett spoke as well. So you really like to see that, especially down in the Greenbrier when you're not at home. So I think that whole experience for the Browns is going to end up really paying off for the team.
So, again, still early in camp. Who are some of the guys that you think are performing well and kind of grabbing some attention early on?
The first one that really stands out to me, and I think he has a good chance to make this roster, is Jalen Darden, a wide receiver we claimed off waivers last year from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He is a guy that plays a Jakeem Grant type of role. He is that smaller type of shifty wide receiver. He's a lot younger than Jakeem Grant. He can return kicks as well, punt return and kick return. I think that gives him a really good shot to make this roster. Not only has he had a couple of plays in training camp that have been impressive, but he worked out a lot this offseason with Deshaun Watson. I think if he can show that he can be that capable returner, I think he's going to make this roster over Jakeem Grant. So really like Jalen Darden, especially if Marquise Goodwin, we don't know his situation. If he isn't able to play this year, I think that locks Darden onto the roster. Another name, David Njoku, it sounds like has had a fantastic start to training camp, but I know we haven't seen a lot of padded practices so far, but it looks like David Njoku has been really hard for the defense to deal with, regardless of who it is that's defending him. So that's really encouraging, because I think when you're paying David Njoku the type of money that you are, you need him to take that next step. And so that's really important for David Njoku. And I think he's going to develop that chemistry with Deshaun Watson that's going to carry him to the upper echelon as far as tight ends in the NFL, which we need to see from him, just with the physical specimen that he is. And then Juan Thornhill. You see him making a couple plays in camp, but also you just see a swagger that he brings to that defensive side of the ball. And I think you need that. He's got that Super Bowl winning experience, but also he's coming, and it seems like he's already becoming a vocal leader of that defense. I really like what he's bringing to the table, and it's early. We've seen 1 week of training camp, so how much can you really base what you're seeing off 1 week? But just early on, those are some key things I've noticed so far.
Yeah, and in fairness, the Hall of Fame game probably aren't going to see many guys whose names you will recognize play very much. You know, you'll get some of the rookies that'll play. DTR will play a lot, but especially the second half of that, you're going to get guys that are trying to fight on to even the practice squad with their play. All right, this from the Bleacher Report. One trade each NFL team should consider before the 2023 season starts. The Browns, they say they should trade Harrison Bryant to the Commanders for a 2024 sixth-round pick. Theoretically, Harrison Bryant seems like a player with a higher ceiling than what he has shown in Cleveland as he enters final year of his rookie contract, looking less and less like he is going to reach that ceiling with the Browns. I don't know about that. With a more pass-heavy offense, you might have a more of a role for Harrison Bryant. He's a guy that, he can catch the ball.
Yeah, with Harrison Bryant, it's kind of been a little unfortunate because I remember when we drafted him, I was kind of excited about him, a Mackey Award winner. Coming in at tight end, you were able to get him, I believe, as a 4th-round pick. At the time, I really liked the pick. It seems just so far it hasn't really clicked with the Browns. But at the same time, he's behind David Njoku, so you're not expecting him to post huge numbers. I think the tough thing for Harrison Bryant now, you bring in Jordan Akins, who is very familiar with Deshaun Watson, and I think Akins is now your backup tight end. So Harrison Bryant, he's good as a third tight end. I have no problem with that. I think the only way they'd look to trade him is if you get a decent draft pick, they might look to move him, because then maybe you just sign another veteran, or you keep Zaire Mitchell-Payton on the roster, who they kept all last year. After they signed him as a UDFA, they kept him on the practice squad, still on the roster now, so maybe they see something there they like. Nothing against Harrison Bryant. Very solid third tight end, and I think he would get opportunities, especially in the red zone. So if they trade him, they wouldn't get a whole lot for him, but at the same time, I expect him to make this roster for sure.
So this is from Dog Pound Daily. 5 unexpected free agent signings the Browns could still make happen. They say, number 1, Bryce Callahan, a cornerback. Not sure they're going to be signing any cornerbacks. Number 2, defensive lineman Shelby Harris, reportedly in Berea working out today. 3 is edge rusher Yannick Ngakoue. 4, wide receiver N'Keal Harry, and 5, running back Ezekiel Elliott. I don't know about you, Tyler. The only one I think of those that has a reasonable chance of happening is maybe Harris. And Mary Kay said that he had worked out with the Broncos yesterday, so he might be just kind of going around trying to get the lay of the land as to where he wants to go.
Yeah, Shelby Harris would be a phenomenal addition if the Browns can end up adding him. Shelby Harris is going to be 32 years old, 6'3", 300 pounds, 30 solo tackles last year, 2 sacks, 73.2 overall grade, 76.9 against the run, which the Browns desperately could use that, and then 60.7 pass rush grade. I think it's interesting that he visited the Broncos, considering they traded him the Russell Wilson deal, which he did not seem to be very fond of at the time, being included in that trade. So the fact he visited Denver makes you wonder if he is going to go back to Denver, but he'd be a great addition. Bryce Callahan would have made a lot of sense for the Browns if you didn't draft Cam Mitchell. I think they could have looked at a veteran like Bryce Callahan. Yannick Ngakoue, too much money. That's the reason he's still a free agent at this point. N'Keal Harry doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, because I feel like if Marquise Goodwin is the guy that ends up missing extended time for the Browns this year, they want to add speed and not another big body wide receiver. Ezekiel Elliott is interesting from the standpoint of, maybe he's looking at that point, he gets a cheap deal. If you could sign him for 1 year, $3 million, I wouldn't complain about it. You're not really going to get a better backup than that. But I think the Browns really like Jerome Ford and what they have there. Then you just have a battle for the third running back between Demetric Felton, John Kelly, and Hassan Hall. So, yeah, I think Shelby Harris is the most realistic. The one with the outside, very slim outside chance could be Ezekiel Elliott, but I don't see that one happening.
Tyler Johnson from the Faithful Dogs Podcast Network, 216 and I. Going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, some more comments about Elijah Moore and what he has looked like so far. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Tyler Johnson from the Faithful Dogs Podcast and Network 216. Longtime Browns beat reporter Tony Grossi on what he saw from Elijah Mitchell. This is from ESPN Cleveland.
Elijah Moore is a real deal. He's a real NFL receiver. And I think he had the play of the week on that little
corner touchdown.
Oh, that double move on Denzel Ward, who was all over him every step of the way, and he reached up and caught the ball, which points out that it's not just speed that he brings. That was a 2-yard route, and it was tremendous. So I think he's the real deal. He's going to be a weapon. He could end up leading the team in receptions.
And again, Elijah Moore has been opening eyes. I believe I said Elijah Mitchell going into that. But Tyler, Elijah Moore has been pretty much what the Browns thought he would be in the early going. Now, see if he can continue and take it up a notch or two.
I'm probably one of the biggest Elijah Moore fans there is, and very excited about what he has the potential to bring to this Browns offense. That move that Grossi is talking about on Denzel Ward was absolutely incredible. And the fact that Denzel Ward slipped and was still nearly able to knock that ball away just shows how good Denzel Ward is too. And iron sharpens iron when it comes down to it. To have those types of battles in the red zone, that's what you want to see. You want to see that competition. But then even just the throw by Deshaun Watson, that ball placement had to be perfect in order to complete that pass. But Elijah Moore is as advertised. He's going to bring speed. He's one of the best route runners in the NFL, so he's bringing that with him too. But also something that caught my eye is the Browns had him returning kicks too, at least in line to do so. So that really piqued my interest too, is the fact that they seem to want to get him involved in possibly the return game. Not often, but to see Elijah Moore even involved in that. We also saw some plays with him taking a handoff, catching passes out of the backfield. He is going to be used absolutely everywhere. And Grossi's saying he could lead this team in receptions. I 100% agree with that, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if that happened. He's just that type of talent, and he already seems to have that chemistry with Deshaun Watson, and he didn't even join super early in the offseason. So the fact that they were able to add Elijah Moore, he already worked out a lot with Deshaun Watson in the offseason. They already have a chemistry, only means good things for the Browns this season.
Well, a lot has been made about Nick Chubb in the passing game. Take a look at this. This is last year's ranks among running backs with at least 25 receptions. He was 5th in yards per catch, 8.9. 3rd in yards after catch per catch, 9.7. And tied for 5th in contested catches with 2. Bottom line is, if he give him the chance, it looks like he can be effective in the passing game. And the other thing is, think about Nick Chubb in the open field. There are going to be safeties that are making business decisions if he's running at them.
Yeah, Nick Chubb is a very capable pass catcher. Again, he's not a Jerick McKinnon out of the backfield to where that's his strength, catching the football, but he can do it effectively. And the more you can get Nick Chubb out in open space, it's only going to help your team. And like you said, Dave, a safety going one-on-one with Nick Chubb, I'll take Nick Chubb every single time, regardless of who's back there at safety, even if it's Derwin James back there. I'll take Nick Chubb every time. The more you get him involved in open space, it's going to help your team. So I do expect him to be involved maybe a little bit more in the passing game this year, just with Kareem Hunt out and no longer with the Browns. I do think Jerome Ford is going to take some of that. Demetric Felton, if he makes this roster, will as well. But they're going to get Nick Chubb involved in the screen game a lot more this year, and I think you need to. There's no reason why Nick Chubb shouldn't have the ball in his hands 20, 25 times a game. Of course, you're moving to a new offense that's going to mainly go through Deshaun Watson and a lot more pass-heavy this year. But Nick Chubb should still have 20, 25 touches a game, whether that be carries or catches. He just has to be involved that much because he is your best offensive player.
So the Athletics' Mike Sando ranked quarterback tiers. Tier 1, quarterbacks that can carry their team each week. Team wins because of him, expertly handles passing situations, no real holes in his game. And you see Tier 1, Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Rodgers, Justin Herbert. Tier 2, can carry his team sometimes not as consistently, can handle the pure passing situations in and does or possesses other dimensions that are special enough to elevate him above Tier 3. And in that Tier 2 is Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Trevor Lawrence, Dak Prescott, Matthew Stafford, Deshaun Watson, and Kirk Cousins. 11th overall, you're splitting hairs. Watson could get to the point where he's back in that top 5, top 6. But I think 11's probably fair.
Yeah, I think 11's fair, especially just coming off the year that he had last year. Again, only playing 6 games with everything he was coming back from last year, not playing for nearly 2 years. It's a fair ranking. I am a little surprised just to see Trevor Lawrence as high as he is, Dak Prescott, that surprised me a little bit because I do think from a talent perspective, Deshaun Watson is better than both of them. But at the same time, I understand where the rankings are. Deshaun Watson is 11th. I think he's going to move up that ladder this season. I just think he has the ability. We didn't see it as much in Houston, unfortunately, in 2020, especially when they really took some of the star players away from that roster, including DeAndre Hopkins. You also need talent around the quarterback, too. I do believe Deshaun Watson can elevate all the talent around him, but also there was so many things wrong with that Texans team in 2020. That's why they went 4-12 at the time, because there was just no one else there but really Deshaun Watson and Brandon Cooks. Now he's got a lot more talent around him, so I think Deshaun Watson can easily push himself into the upper echelon of quarterbacks this year.
Tyler Johnson from the Faithful Dogs Podcast Network 216 and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we continue talking Browns. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Tyler Johnson from the Faithful Dogs Podcast as well as Network 216. This is from Pro Football Focus. One rookie for each AFC team with the most to gain from training camp. And for the Browns, they say DeJuan Jones. While Cleveland is set at tackle with Jedrick Wills and Jack Conklin, training camp is a chance for Jones to prove that he holds the potential to anchor this offensive line if his number is called. He gets to do so under lauded offensive line coach Bill Callahan. And Tyler, the Hall of Fame game and the practice, this is DeJuan Jones' chance to show up and say, yep, you made the right choice.
In front of him to pass James Hudson as far as being the go-to swing tackle for the Browns, being your sixth offensive tackle in case Conklin gets injured, in case Jed Wills gets injured or struggles really bad. DeJuan Jones has all the talent in the world. I think the biggest question is he's got to stay in shape. We knew that from Ohio State, and that was something that's really well known. But he came into training camp in great shape, but also just how quickly he learns the position. I think if he looks really good in the preseason, because I believe he's going to get a ton of reps in the preseason, as he should, if he shows that he can handle that and outperform James Hudson, there's no reason why he won't be your sixth offensive lineman this season. And to do that as a rookie would be a great sign for the Browns because, again, you have a tough decision on Jed Wills coming up in the future. They've been using him at right tackle and left tackle. So I want to see in the preseason, will DeJuan Jones play some left tackle? If he does, how does he look at left tackle? Because if he looks pretty good at left tackle, maybe you have a future Jed Wills replacement. So there's a lot of questions with DeJuan Jones as far as what is his set position. He was a right tackle at Ohio State. If he can play left tackle, that's going to be very interesting to see how the Browns handle that situation moving forward because they did pick up the fifth-year option on Jed Wills. But they need to see Jed Wills really take a step forward to determine if he's going to be part of their future moving forward. If DeJuan Jones can show he can play left tackle, that might be your future left tackle. And then it's a lot easier to find a right tackle in the NFL that can be solid than a left tackle. Left tackles, there's a reason why it's one of the most expensive positions in the NFL. It's very hard to find a very good left tackle. And if DeJuan Jones can grow into that role, that would be huge for the Browns. But either way, just want to see him look solid this preseason. And hopefully if he gets some reps in the regular season, he's able to handle the job.
So this is from Sports Illustrated. 12 teams that could actually win Super Bowl 57. Number one, they go 49ers, Bengals, Chiefs, Eagles, Bills, Cowboys at 6, Jets at 7, Ravens at 8, Chargers at 9, and the Browns at number 10. All depends, obviously, on Watson's ability to play like he did a few years ago. In the postseason, teams with solid running games, veteran offensive line, and a closer at the defensive end position tend to perform well. Yeah, that's fair. And I've said all along, if he plays top 10, they've got a chance to go to the AFC Championship game, provided the defense does what we think it will. If he plays top 5, they're challenging.
Oh, yeah. This team, on paper, again, we talk about the Browns are paper champions, it seems like every offseason. There's just so much talent on this roster, though. And, again, health is a huge part of it when it comes to which teams end up actually being contenders for the Super Bowl. Not only playoff spots, but for the Super Bowl. Because normally the teams that are contending for the Super Bowl are also the most healthy come that time. So if the Browns can stay healthy, Deshaun Watson takes that step, not only the top 10, but if he takes that step to the top 5 quarterback that he was with the Texans, the Browns will contend for a Super Bowl. And then it just comes down to the defense after that, I think. Because if Deshaun Watson gives you what we believe he's going to do, and then the defense shows up on top of that, the Browns won't only be a Super Bowl contender, they could become one of the favorites in the AFC. Because if you look on paper, the Chiefs, they have a great offense. There's no doubt. They got Mahomes, Travis Kelce. Defense, well, Chris Jones, is he going to demand a trade because they're not going to give him a contract? So they have questions on defense, especially after losing Juan Thornhill. And then you look at the Bills. The Bills are always very solid, but they seem to not been able to get over that hump the last couple of years. And then you have the Bengals. The Bengals are up there too, but Joe Burrow, we hope that he's going to get back to 100%. But if that calf injury lingers, we have no idea what's going to happen there. That defense lost 2 starting safeties on it, and they lost a couple other pieces. So that door is open. If Deshaun Watson gets back to form, the defense performs like they should, the Browns could very well be a Super Bowl contender. But again, need some things to go your way, and we just have to hope Deshaun Watson get back to that form, which I think he will.
This also from Dog Pound Daily. 3 Browns trying to earn their spot in training camp, meaning earn a bigger role. Number 3, we've talked about him, Jordan Akins, does have familiarity with Deshaun Watson. That will help him. Elijah Moore has been kind of the talk of the early part of training camp. And number 1 cornerback, Martin Emerson. And Tyler, I think all 3 of those guys are going to earn bigger roles. And I think if they play well, like I think they will, it's going to mean good things for the Browns.
Absolutely. Jordan Akins, I still think he's going to be your backup tight end at this point, unless Harrison Bryant has a phenomenal preseason and outperforms them. Jordan Akins will probably be your backup tight end. We've already seen some nice plays from him in training camp. Elijah Moore, I do believe he's going to lead this team in targets, so him getting a bigger role, and already what we've seen from him in training camp, very encouraged there. Martin Emerson is the one that hard to know what his role is going to be. You got Denzel Ward, you got Greg Newsome. How is Jim Schwartz going to balance this out? I believe all 3 are going to play and play together a lot, but is he going to be outside? Is he going to be inside? I think he is more suited to be an outside corner, especially given his size. I prefer him on the outside, but I do think he can play a little inside. All those guys will get a bigger role this year, as they should. The most one I'm excited for is Elijah Moore, just because of the element that he brings to the offense. But if you look at Martin Emerson Jr., he came out of nowhere as a rookie. I mean, I really didn't know much about him as a draft pick, just because that pick really surprised me. I didn't think we were going to take a corner last year. And he turns out he was one of our best players on defense. So I really want to see him take that next step. And if this secondary can get on track after last season and really just the miscommunication with Joe Wood's defense, if they can get on the same page under Jim Schwartz, which I think they will, the Browns have a top 5 secondary in the NFL.
We got about a minute left. Who are some guys you think the Hall of Fame game is important for? None of the starters are going to play, but who is this Hall of Fame game important for, do you think?
Well, we mentioned him earlier. I think DeJuan Jones is a name to really watch, because you need to see, can he be that 6th offensive lineman for you, or is James Hudson going to be that guy? Because there's a battle right now for that 6th offensive tackle position, and who's going to be that swing guy if Wills or Conklin go down. Is it going to be DeJuan Jones, James Hudson? So that's going to be really big for DeJuan Jones, but same for James Hudson too. Another name that I want to see Jalen Darden. I mentioned him earlier. I'm hoping he'll be able to play. It sounds like he was out with injury the last day of training camp in Greenbrier, so hopefully he's healthy. But also another receiver that I would keep an eye on. keep an eye on Dalen Baldwin. He was on the roster last year. He even had some games where he played a little bit, didn't contribute a lot, but he's had a couple plays in training camp that's looked impressive. And I think the Browns like him. I mean, normally when you keep a guy on your practice squad, the rest of the season, you bring him to training camp, you see a little something there. So a guy like Dalen Baldwin is playing for a practice squad spot. And I would say the same about Austin Watkins, who they brought in as well as a free agent. But then on the defensive side of the ball, I want to see some of these undrafted free agents. I want to see Mohamed Diabate at linebacker. I want to see Ronnie Hickman, Tanner McAllister. Who's going to earn their way onto this roster? Because right now at the safety position, there's a battle for that fourth safety spot between Ronnie Hickman, Tanner McAllister, and DeAnthony Bell. So I want to see who earns that spot. But it's going to be a lot of fun, the Hall of Fame game. I know we're not going to see a lot of the starters, but there's still a lot to look forward to because Browns football's back.
Tyler Johnson, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Tyler.
Anytime, Dave. Thank you.
All right, Tyler Johnson, make sure you check him out. Faithful Dogs Podcast Network 216. Browns back on the field in Berea, open to some of the fans and the public tomorrow. We will see you tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports4CLE.